Hello and welcome back to this, the fourth episode of our Perdition's Mouth Abyssal Rift Learn to Play video series. In this series we'll be finishing off our first introductory scenario 1A called Side Entrance. Now as it stands, what we'd like to do here is pretty much get our heroes off the map as quickly as possible. But in order to show you a little bit more of the gameplay, what we're going to do is we're just going to delay that slightly. And I am going to admit that I am going to jiggle the response deck just so that we can see an attack by the enemies. Up to now, I've just been pulling it as drawn, but in order that you can see a bit more of the game, I am going to fiddle it a little bit from now on. So I do apologise, but in order for us to be able to see a bit more of the content, it will be necessary. Otherwise, we would just run off the map pretty much before anything else got done. So I hope you don't mind. I will just show you a bit more of the game. But if you were playing it and I was advising you tactically at this particular point in the game, my advice would be to hightail it for the exit and get off the board as quickly as possible. But as I say, I'll do it a little different just to show you a bit more of the game. That said, we are now into turn 3 and we need to decide upon our hero order. I think what we will do is we will have Bastion, then we will have Niffle, and then we will have Eliza go. So let's get across. We'll have a look very quickly at Bastion's hero sheet and the cards he has available, and then we will go to the Stone of Destiny. And here we are with Bastion. He's still on his 6 hit points, which means he's got 6 action points. He still only has 1 range, he has 4 combat, and he has 4 defense. As regards cards though, all he has are these discards and his draw deck. He has no cards in his hand. He has spent them all last turn to move up to that cultist guard and defeat it. So he has no playable cards whatsoever. So that is it for Bastion. Let's move on to the Stone of Destiny and see what he is going to do. And here we are at the Stone of Destiny. The first thing to do, of course, is to spin these guys around because everybody has got a new turn. So as mentioned, Bastion is going first. Now, if we were playing this sensibly in this particular round, what Bastion would do is he would actually go on the move tab. He'd move down here, he'd spend 1, 2 for bash, and his third action point would get him onto move. That would leave him 3 left. He would draw a card, and then we would try and move him as quickly as possible down the corridor to the exit. But as it stands, we're not going to do that. We're going to do something slightly different. So what is he going to do? Well, he's going to spend all 6 of his action points. So 1, 2, 3, skip, 4, 5, 6. And he's actually going to go onto the Defend tab. The reason for that is he is the nearest to the door where the enemies are approaching. So if they get into that doorway, he will be closest. All of the enemies work on the closest hero, apart from summoners. Summoners are slightly different, but we don't have summoners on the board. So any enemy that goes into that doorway will attack Bastion because he will be nearest. Therefore, he's gone on the Defend tab. Now, the Defend tab has some special rules around it. First of all, he will actually get to draw a card. So let's draw his card. Here's the deck we saw earlier, and he gets Battle Tactics. Excellent. 3 action points, all symbol card, brilliant. So we'll put that there. Very good. So he's got Battle Tactics. Now he could play that now. How could he play that now? Well, this symbol here, which is a shield with a circle around it, you can actually spend action points to get yourself shield tokens. Shield tokens are cardboard tokens that you get with the game, and when you're on a defend tab you can buy them, and it's 2 for 1, so 2 action points would get you one of these, but you don't get change. So for example, if he was to spend battle tactics, which is 3 action points, he could only buy one of these because they cost 2 each because of the circle around the symbol. He's not going to buy one. He's going to keep battle tactics because we're going to use that to get off the board later on. But he could buy one of these if he wanted. When you buy one of these, this gives you an extra defense. So when we saw Bastion's hero sheet a short while ago, he had 4 defense. With one of these, that would put it up to 5 defense. But as I say, he's not actually going to buy one. He's got no action points left because he spent all 6 to go right around to the defend spoke. So he's not actually going to buy one, but he could have done had he wished. Now you will also notice that there is a response card symbol. What this means, it means if Bastion is actually attacked, he can draw a response card. Doesn't draw it now, he will draw it while the attack is taking place, and he will draw it last to see if he can survive and defend himself. So that is what the response card means on this particular spoke. Now I've got a bit of an update about the response card symbols that you can see on the sprint spoke and the bash spoke. There's been a clarification by Dragon Dawn Productions about their use. Now this clarification came after I actually started the playthrough, so I'll go through it now. On sprint and bash, you can pick up your response card at any time. So it doesn't have to be in order. Yes, right as soon as you land on that sprint spoke, you can pull your response card. Then you can make your decisions about your hero cards and basically build up your pool of movement points that you are going to use. So now you can pull that response card whenever you like. Similarly, on the bash spoke down here for melee characters, you can pull this response card whenever. This will count towards your combat pool. So you can make up your combat pool with hero cards, your response card, and basically you can calculate how many action points you have to spend on combat or to spend on movement. This is important because you may have at some time wound cards, and wound cards are detriment cards, and you have to play them to get them out of your hand, and they normally have minus values on. So if you can pull your response card first for either sprint or for bash, you have a chance of calculating enough action points so you can get rid of a wound card. Some wound cards are minus movement, some wound cards are, for example, are minus combat. So it just makes it a little bit easier for you to manage your hand. So that has been clarified recently, but it doesn't apply to defend. Follow the rules on page 29 of the rulebook for defend. That does not change. So we'll play that anyway during this particular round. But I just clarified bash and sprint there. You can actually pull those response cards whenever you like. Okay, having sorted that out, he's done his defend spoke. He's not moving anywhere, so we will point that inwards. We will take the battle tactics card that he pulled and we will put that in his hand, and that is it for Bastion. Next up, we will have a look at the hero sheet of Niffle. And here we are with Niffle. He's still on 3 hit points, so he's still got 8 action points, a range of 1 to 4, combat of 2 and defense of 2. He retains 3 cards in his hand, which are Parker, Stealth and Duck and Roll. So he's still got those. So what are we going to do with Niffle? Let's get straight up to the Stone of Destiny and have a look. And here we are back at the Stone of Destiny with Niffle. I've got his starting hand here and I've also got his draw deck. The reason for that is is because he is going to rest. So he's going to spend 1 of his 8 action points to rest, and then he is going to follow what you do when you rest. So what do you do when you rest? Well, first of all, you shuffle any discarded cards back into your draw deck. So here are the cards that he has discarded, and they go back into the draw deck, and you give them a shuffle. So that has been shuffled. We must then draw additional hero cards till we hit his starting hand size, which is 5. So let's draw another 2 cards. We get Diligence again, so we managed to shuffle that back in, and we get Pick Lock, which is a reaction. So he's now back up to his starting hand of 5 cards. Another thing to remember that is, while Niffle is resting, he cannot aid any other characters. So he cannot spend any of these cards to help another hero. So essentially he is taking a time out. So again, he won't be moving, so there's no need to go to the board. He's in exactly the same place, just like Bastion. What he's done is he's rested, he's drawn back up to his starting hand size, and he will be ready to go again next turn. Just to clarify, he doesn't get any health back. He's at full health anyway, but even if he was wounded in any way, he wouldn't get any of his health back. He's not on a flea mattress. Additionally, if he had any fatigue, he wouldn't be able to get rid of that either. You need special abilities, or you need special treasure to do that. So all it does is essentially it allows you to refocus and to get cards back into your hand. So that's what he's done. That is the end of Niffle's turn. So next up, let's have a look at Elisa. And here we are with Elisa. Elisa is still on 3 hit points, which means she has 5 action points. She still has a range of 1 to 6. She has no combat, so she doesn't have a base combat, remember, but she does have 2 defense. She has 3 cards remaining in her hand: Elvish Dagger, Helping Hand, and Focus. So that is it for where Elisa is up to. Let's get to the Stone of Destiny and see what she is going to do. And here we are back at the Stone of Destiny. So what is Elisa going to do? Well, she's only going to spend 1 action point, and she's going to go on to attack. Now, the reason we're doing this is basically we want to pull another card. So let's get a deck, and as you can see, we can pull another card. So let's see what we get, and we get Fireball. So combat spell, cast a flaming spell, your attack becomes an area attack with +3 combat against 1 figure in range, and each figure within 1 range of that particular figure. This will attack both heroes and enemies. So a very strong card. So that will go into her hand. We'll put that over there next to her hero sheet. Then we will look at the rest of the attack spoke. Now, we have the combat symbol with a circle around it. This means we can spend action points for combat points at a 2-for-1 ratio. She has 5 action points. She spent 1, which means she's got 4 left. So essentially she could buy 2 action points. She's not going to do that because she's got nothing that she can attack. But she could if she wanted. This is just an example of how you can move on to a particular spoke, but you don't actually have to do what the spoke says. You can completely ignore what is on the spoke. In a similar fashion, for example, if she went on sprint, you don't actually have to pull the response card if you do not wish to. The vast majority of time, obviously, you will do because you want it to help you. But if you don't want to pull the response card, that is completely up to you. But sometimes you may want to move on to a particular spoke, don't want to attack or can't attack, you just want the extra card. And that's what we've done here. We've just moved here just so we can get a card. Sometimes you will move on to a spoke, for example like the special spoke here that only has 1 hole in it, and you might be blocking that up so it makes it easier for another hero to skip. and it makes their action points go further because they have a particular spoke that they want to get onto. So that is just some of the minor tactics that you may do when you are actually deciding where you are going to put your hero peg during a game. As it is, she isn't going to attack. That is the end of her turn. She hasn't moved, so again, we won't bother going to the board. She's in exactly the same place she was, and we will just turn her hero peg round, and that signifies to us that the hero phase is over. Let's move on to the enemy phase. And here we are at the enemy phase, and what I've done is I've gone straight to the enemy watchstone. So here we are at the enemy watchstone, and this is where I confess I have fiddled a bit, just to show us a bit more of the game. So let's pull this really surprising response card, which is a +3. So a couple of things I want to show you is, one, this is a +3, so we're going to get some considerable movement on the watchstone, but also you can see it's got shuffle the deck. So after we've done this, after we've moved 3 points on the watchstone, I will put this back in the deck, and I will also take the response cards that have been discarded and we will shuffle them all into the deck. But just before we do that, let's do our bead movement. So we'll move the green one, 1, 2, 3. That means we're going to get a move, then we're going to get a secondary spawn, then we are going to get an attack. Okay, we know that's going to occur now, so we can shuffle the deck. So we'll put that back on top. We will get our discard pile, which is here, add them all together and give it a quick shuffle. So what this allows is for the deck to get refreshed occasionally, and you will never run out of cards, response cards. So there we go, there's the newly shuffled deck. Let's give it a quick cut and we'll put that over here. So let's move on with the enemy phase. So first of all, we have got movement. Let's move back to the board and we can see the movement. And here we are back at the board. As you can see, none of our heroes has moved. They've all stayed in the same place because they want to give the enemies a go. So no, it's merely so I can show you a bit more of the game. Okay, so we've got movement. Another thing you'll have noticed is I've put some sort of yellow pieces of paper just underneath the enemies. The reason for this is just to make them show up a little better because they have been primed in black paint. So hopefully this will just help them stand out that little bit more. So our first cultist to move will be, as ever, the weakest, which is the Acolyte. So it's going to go 1, 2, and it's going to move here. Next up, we have our cultist guards. They can move 3, but also remember that they want to stay within 3 range of any target that they are attacking. As it stands, they're going to move the full 3 movement because they're also going to fulfill their targeting as well by doing that movement. To show you what I mean, this guy will go first, so he goes 1, 2, 3. He is right in the doorway. He will target the closest hero. The closest hero is Bastion. Bastion is 1, 2, 3 away. So he has totally fulfilled not only his range, but his targeting. It is also within line of sight. So from the centre of the cultist guard square to the centre of Bastion square, there are no obstacles in the way, so that is fine. His colleague will follow him out, so he will go 1, 2, 3, and he will come here. Unfortunately, he is not in range of anyone. But before we do any attacking, we've got a spawn, and we've got a secondary spawn. So let's move over to the spawn pool and have a look at that. And here we have our secondary spawn pool. What we're going to do is, obviously, we're going to take another of these acolytes. we're not going to take a summoner out, we will take an acolyte out. We will place him again adjacent to the trapdoor on the board, and we will place him as far away from the acolyte exit as possible. So I'll just do that now, and we'll pop back to the board and see how that has changed things. And here we are back at the board, and this is where we have put our new acolyte. It is adjacent to the trapdoor, so everything is fine. Another thing to point out is we only promoted one monster because the threat meter is still on 1. So that's why we only took a single acolyte. That done, let's move the enemy watchstone again, and we move on to combat. Let me move the camera, and we can have a better look at the combat between the Cultist Guard and Bastion. And here we are at the attack between this Cultist Guard and Bastion here, who, as mentioned, is the closest hero, who is at 3 range. Okay, how do enemy attacks work? Well, first of all, the hero gets a chance to boost his defence. If you recall, Bastion has a defence of 4. Now, the attack from the Cultist Guard here is 2. So already we are +2. And remember, we also get to draw a response card for our defence. So what we could do is we could play Battle Tactics. It's all symbol card, and it would give us an extra 3 defence. But we're already +2, so we're not going to play Battle Tactics. Similarly, for example, Niffle here could aid Bastion. And he could aid Bastion, for example, with Diligence, which is very similar to Battle Tactics. It would give him an extra 3 points of defence because it is an all-symbol card. We're not going to play it because we're +2, but we could do. Similarly, he could also be aided by Elisa. But Elisa's aid wouldn't be as good. She's not within 1 range, for example, like Niffle is. He's right next door. But because she's 1 square removed, that means she will get -1 on whatever aid she does. If she was here, she would be 2 squares away, and that would be -2. -3 if she was here, and so on. But as it stands, he says, knocking her over, it is -1. So, for example, if she played Helping Hand, it wouldn't be 2, it would be 1. And that is because of the distance between the both of them. As it is, we're not playing any, but that is just an example of how an aid card would work. Having decided not to play any hero cards or any aid cards, the attacker will now go first, which is our friend the Cultist Guard. He will now pull his response card. This is an important part of the attack. Once you flick this over, you cannot play any hero cards, you cannot do any aiding. So once you decide to flick this over, that's it. And he gets a +1. So we already know that we are safe. He's got 3 attack, and we still have 4 defence for Bastion. So we'll put that up there. We could decide now not to pull the response card, but we will do so. And we get a 0. So there you go. He still managed to avoid the cultist dart. But what would have happened had the cultist hit? Well, if the cultist had hit, he would have inflicted 1 wound onto Bastion. So he would have gone from 6 hit points to 5, and that would have changed his hero sheet. Let's just get the hero sheet. So if he had suffered a wound, he would have gone to 5 hit points, which would have meant he was down to 5 action points. He still would have had 1 range. He still would have had a combat of 4, but his defence would have gone down as well to 3. But as it is, he wasn't hit. He would have received a wound card. So as well as losing a hit point, he would have got one of these wound cards. So just to show you how that works, I've just shuffled them, and that would go on top of his draw deck. You do not flip it over. You only flip it over when he draws another card off his draw deck. It goes right on the top of the deck. So until you actually turn it over, you will not know what wound card he has. Now, let's pretend that he did get wounded, and at a later date, we're flicking this over. He's gone on the move tab, which means he has to pick up a card off his draw deck. This is the top one, and the injury he would have suffered is a numbed hand. And here you can see it's -2. There is a combat symbol here. That means in order to discard this card on a combat, he would have to have enough action points that he could play this. So say he mustered 5 combat, he'd play this card, take 2 off the 5 and end up with 3 combat. In playing this card, he could then discard it into his discarded hand. He doesn't get rid of it, it stays in his discarded hand. So for example, say he rested, there's a good chance it could get shuffled back into his deck. You can only discard these out of your hand due to special abilities or due to special treasure items like healing potions, things like that. So that is what he would have got had he been hit. He wasn't, but that is an example. So we will put that away. Additionally, because we are using a cultist guard to attack, if he had hit, he would have also got one of these, which is a fatigue token. The poison in the blowpipe darts would have fatigued him. What this means is you lose an action point. So for every fatigue token that you get, you lose an action point. He was down to 5 hit points, which was 5 action points, but he'd have got this as well, and that would have put him down to 4 action points because he was fatigued. Fatigue can only be got rid of in between scenarios and with special abilities again, or certain special treasure items. But he didn't get hit, he didn't get one of these. But an important thing to note about them is no matter how many of these that you get, any hero will still have 3 action points. So even if Bastion got 6 of these, he'd still have 3 action points. So that's what would have happened had he been hit. He wasn't, fortunately, and it bounced off his shield. So that is it for the attack from the cultist guard. None of the other enemies can attack. They are not in range or in line of sight. So that is it for the enemy phase. Let's pull back out, have a look at the board and see where we're up to. And here we are overlooking the board. That is the end of turn 3. I'm going to do turn 4 and then I'm going to stop it there. Even if we don't get off the board, we'll just call it a day. I think we've pretty much gone through everything, but I'll very quickly breeze through turn 4. There is something else I want to show you, and then at the end of this video I will go through some of the common errors that you can make and warn you against them. So let's get straight into turn 4 and the hero phase. And here we are with Elisa, who's going to be our first player. Why is she going to be our first player? Well, we're going to have a little bit of fun, and we are actually going to use Fireball. So this is a flaming spell. We've got 3 cultists at the doorway right next to each other. It is just too good an opportunity to miss. So we're going to cast Fireball, which is an area of effect attack. So in order to do that, let's get over to the Stone of Destiny and see how we can manage it. Here we are at the Stone of Destiny. So as normal, we will spin everybody around so they're all ready to go. And what are we going to do with Elisa? Well, Elisa is going to spend 3 action points out of her 5. 1, 2, 3, which leaves her with 2 left. Now, she could use those on movement, but she's not going to. She's going to stay where she is. And she's going to cast Fireball. But she's also going to spend Focus as well, which is an any symbol card for 2. So we'll take these across to the board and see how that pans out. And here we are back at the board. So we have Elisa here. She's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is the chap that she's hitting. So him right in the doorway. That is all she has to do, because if you remember, if we look at Fireball, cast a flaming spell, your attack becomes an area attack with combat +3 against one figure in range. That is the guard in the doorway, and each other figure within one range of that target. So these two. So it will be hitting all these three. The fireball is going to go over here, hit him, go boom, and affect all three. So let's have a look. We get +3 from fireball, plus an extra 2, that is 5. What are the defences of the guards? The guards have a defence of 2, and the cultist has a defence of 1. So it is 5 against 2, 5 against 1. We're not going to add anything else to it. Again, for example, Niffle could aid us with diligence, but we're just gonna stick with that. I think that is good enough, being +3. So 5 against 2 for our first guard. He draws a -1. So he takes a wound. Our next attack will be the cultist guard next to him. So he gets to draw a defense card as well, a defense response card. He gets +2, not quite good enough. That puts him up to 4, but we've got a combat of 5. So he too will receive a wound. And finally, we have the Acolyte. Only has a defense of 1, remember. Only gets a +1. He gets a wound, but he only has 1 hit point. So he is killed and goes to the dead pool. So that was a very good attack there by Elisa. We will discard all of these response cards. And we will discard both of these to her hero discard. And that is it for Elisa's go. Let's go back to the Stone of Destiny. And here we are back at the Stone of Destiny. So we will spin Elisa round. That is the end of her turn. Next up, we are going to have Niffle. So let's have a quick look at his sheet and his cards. And here we are with Niffle. Still on 3 hit points. Still got 8 action points, 1 to 4 range, 2 combat and 2 defence. He now has his full complement of a starting hand with Diligence, Duck and Roll, Parker, Pick Lock and Stealth. Let's get to the Stone of Destiny and let's see what he is going to do. And here we are at the Stone of Destiny. Niffle is going to move 4 spokes. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. But that still leaves him with 4 action points. He's going to be able to draw a card. He's got a hand size limit of 7, so it's okay to draw another card. And he gets Find Weakness. So this is a combat, special and defense card where you get 1 action point plus a response card draw. We'll put that over with his hero sheet. We do have Diligence here, but that's because we are going to use it during the attack. So he's spent 4 action points to get onto this spoke. Remember, it's a combat symbol with a circle around it, so he can spend the other 4 action points for combat. 2 for 1, so he's going to get 2 extra combat points. He's got a base combat of 2, so that puts him up to 4, plus Diligence will put him up to 7. So he will have a grand total of 7 combat, and he is going to attack the cultist guard in the doorway. So let's get over to the board. And here we are at the board. So we've got Niffle here. He's got a range of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the cultist is in range. He's got absolutely no problem with line of sight. So he is going to attack. So he's attacking the cultist. The cultist has a defense of 2, but we have 7 combat. 2 base combat, 2 that he bought on the combat spoke, and the extra 3 from diligence. So he's going to have to pull a +5 or better. He gets a +2, which isn't good enough. So we put yet another damage on him. He only has 2 hit points. He's already got 1. So this cultist guard goes into the dead pool. There we go. And that is the end of that for Niffo. So we will put this in the discard. We will put Diligence in the hero discard. And we will go back to the Stone of Destiny. And here we are at the Stone of Destiny. So that is the end of Nifl's turn. So we will turn him inwards. And that means we have only got 1 hero left. And that is Bastion. So let's have a look at his hero sheet and his cards. And here we are with Bastion. He didn't actually get hit last turn, so he's still got 6 action points, 1 range, 4 combat and 4 defence. And he's got his card Battle Tactics. So what is he going to do this turn? Let's have a look at the Stone of Destiny. And here we are at the Stone of Destiny. He still has 6 action points in his pool. We're going to spend 1. And he's going to go onto the Charge tab. So he still has 5 action points for movement. He's going to use those 5 action points to go right to the doorway. And then at the doorway, he is going to hit the other cultist guard. Remember, that does have a wound on it because we hit it with a fireball. He's also going to use Battle Tactics, and hopefully we will get rid of this last cultist guard. So let's get across to the board and let's see if he can do it. And here we are at the board. Now, there are a couple of ways we can get to where we want to be. We just want to be here. We can hit diagonally and we can cut across one corner to do it. A couple of ways we can do it. We could go 1, 2, 3 this way, or we could actually go over the difficult terrain if we wanted. So let's do that just to show how it works. So he's got 5 action points left. He has to spend 3 to get on that difficult terrain, which is rubble. He's got 2 left. 1, 2. So he gets here. That's exactly where we want him to be. He can attack diagonally. So he's done his movement and he's going to attack. So he's going to use Battle Tactics. That's 3. Plus, he gets his 4 base attacks. So that is 7 in total. The Cultist Guard has a defense of 2. So again, what we've got to see is a +5 or better. We get a 0. So again, we have put the final wound on this guy. And he joins his compatriot in the dead pool. So there we go. That is the end of that. We've still only got 1 enemy left on the board. That is the Acolyte just down here. But we have managed to finish off all the cultist guards. I'm going to leave it there. The reason being, there's not much point in carrying on. All I'll be doing is actually going down here. I did want to show you the area of effect damage of a fireball, and I also wanted to show the enemies actually attacking one of our heroes and what would happen. Other than that, from now on, all I would be doing is spending hero cards to actually get off the level. They wouldn't be able to spawn quickly enough. We've still got 4 acolytes in the spawn pools. Those would be what I'd promote should we get any spawns, and basically we'll just get off the level. So I hope you have seen a lot of the mechanisms in the game and that you have been able to learn from them and have found them useful. What I'll do now is I'll quickly go through some of the common errors in the game and then we will wrap up. Hello and welcome back to some of the common mistakes that we want to help you to try and avoid. These are all listed in the rulebook on page 37, but I'll just go through them very quickly here. The first rule is you will not draw off your hero draw deck every round. You can only draw off your hero draw deck when you are specifically told to do so on the Stone of Destiny. So you will see a little symbol like a white card with a cross in the middle of it. That means that you can draw another card. On the rest tab, you will see a selection of cards with a cross on them. This means that you can draw back up to your starting hand. So do not draw a hero card every round. When you play or discard a hero card, you will discard it to your own discard pile. So if you remember battle tactics, right at the end there, that needed to be discarded. We will put it on Killer Instinct, which was discarded earlier. Next is aiding. If you wish to aid one of your hero friends, there is no penalty should you be within one range. So anywhere around here is fine for Elisa to aid Bastion. But as soon as we start having squares in between the aider and the AD, then it will cost a penalty. And it's the penalty is the amount of squares that you are separated from the person you are trying to aid. If Elisa here wanted to spend a card which had a 3 on it to aid Bastion, she would have to take 1 off that and would only be able to aid him by 2 because she is a square away from Bastion. When the cards in your hand equal your maximum limit and you draw another card, you must immediately discard the card that you draw. You cannot look in the hand that you already have, discard one out of that, and then add the new card. Once your maximum hand size is reached, those cards remain. Any new cards must be immediately discarded. Whenever a hero or enemy attacks, they must beat the target's defense with their response cards and other bonuses added. So any aid cards, any hero cards, anything else that they have, the base attack, it has to be more than the defender. If it is the same or less, then the attack will fail. Only enemies will draw a response card during attacks. Heroes do not draw response cards for themselves unless they are defending or using certain abilities. For example, Bash. The vast majority of the time, when they are attacking, heroes will not use a response card. When they do, it will be very clearly stated on either a hero card or on the Stone of Destiny or on a treasure item, for example. Neither heroes or enemies can have line of sight if they are more than 6 squares away from their target. Within 6 squares, they can have line of sight. Beyond 6 squares, they cannot have line of sight. Even if it is a long, straight corridor, if they are further than 6 squares away, they are not in line of sight. You cannot boost hero abilities that have red numbers, such as Eliza's Blink, for example, to anything greater than 6. 6 is the absolute limit. Any action points spent that go over 6 will be lost. Normal movement cannot be diagonal. It must be orthogonal. The only way you can move diagonally is by special movement, whether that is teleport or through an ability like Bash. All attacks inflict 1 damage only, regardless of how well the attack combat succeeded. There are a few exceptions to this, but again, they will be clearly stated on a hero card, for example, or a treasure item. Otherwise, you will only do 1 damage with an attack. Fatigue tokens or any other effect cannot reduce your action points below 3. You will always have 3 action points. If a hero dies, you don't remove any wounds or other acquired cards from their deck. If they are resurrected, those cards will remain with them. So those are just about a dozen or so points about common mistakes to avoid during the game. As mentioned, they are on page 37 of the rulebook. Also, on page 33 of the rulebook, is a very interesting section on difficulty variance. The game is absolutely made to be moddable, and should you require additional difficulty, there are some variant examples on that page. Also, if you go to the Perdition's Mouth Abyssal Rift BGG page, you will also see a section there on variants that you can look at. I hope you have enjoyed the series and you have gained some benefit from it, and it has helped you to learn to play the game. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.